in the hospital. So the majority of 5 Feet Apart takes place in a hospital, and it takes place over a short period of time because our heroine,
Breaking news has emerged in the legal dispute between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively, as a judge issued a major ruling on the protective order, one that adds complexity rather than delivering a clear victory for either side. The court signaled that some of Lively's concerns about private or potentially damaging information being exposed during proceedings were not fully justified, suggesting that certain materials she sought to keep sealed may not meet the legal threshold for protection. At the same time, her legal team reportedly introduced what they described as explosive evidence, including alleged receipts that point to undisclosed financial dealings, behind-the-scenes arrangements, and possible informal agreements that were never meant to surface publicly. These claims, whether ultimately proven or not, have dramatically intensified the situation, with insiders suggesting that Lively has been working urgently to manage the growing fallout as scrutiny increases. Once viewed as largely untouchable in Hollywood circles, she now finds herself at the center of mounting allegations, including claims tied to bribery and hush money, which have significantly raised both legal and reputational stakes. As media attention grows and public opinion continues to shift, the controversy is evolving into one of the most closely watched celebrity legal battles in recent memory. Amid this escalating drama, an individual claiming to have worked on the set of It Ends With Us offered a perspective that complicates the dominant narrative, suggesting that neither Lively nor Baldoni can be easily labeled as the sole villain in the dispute. This account implies that the reality behind the scenes may be far more layered than the public has been led to believe. Despite this, Lively initially presented herself as the clear victim in a highly publicized conflict, positioning Baldoni as the primary antagonist and asserting that she had compelling, undeniable proof to support her claims. However, when the legal process required substantiated evidence rather than statements, reports indicate that she was unable to deliver documentation or material strong enough to fully support those assertions. This gap between claims and proof quickly drew skepticism, with critics arguing that her narrative appeared to rely more on perception and emotional framing than verifiable facts, thereby weakening its impact in a courtroom setting where evidence is paramount. The situation grew even more complicated as specific allegations began to face closer examination, particularly the controversy surrounding a dance scene that Lively had highlighted as central to her case. She claimed that she was pressured into performing in a manner that exceeded her consent or comfort level, framing the moment as a key example of misconduct. However, when extended footage of the scene became available, it appeared to contradict her version of events, showing her composed, engaged, and performing professionally without any obvious signs of distress or reluctance. This discrepancy significantly undermined her credibility and became a focal point for critics and legal analysts alike. Rather than directly reconciling this inconsistency, Lively shifted her explanation, suggesting that Baldoni's behavior on set was unusual and that she felt compelled to maintain a friendly or cooperative demeanor despite internal discomfort. She later raised additional concerns about choreography choices and alleged deviations from the script, but these evolving arguments were met with confusion by legal experts, many of whom noted that actors are routinely expected to portray emotions and scenarios that may not reflect their personal feelings. This ongoing shift in narrative has made the case increasingly complex, blurring the line between personal grievance and professional obligation, and leaving both the court and the public to sort through conflicting claims as the high-profile dispute continues to unfold. When that approach failed, Blake Lively escalated matters by filing an unusually lengthy 180-page complaint, far exceeding the standard size of most legal filings. Critics argued that the sheer volume of the document appeared designed to overwhelm rather than clarify, potentially making it harder for the court to isolate concrete, verifiable claims. Judge Lyman, who was overseeing the case, purportedly viewed the filing as more theatrical than substantive, interpreting it as a move that leaned toward public messaging rather than a tightly argued legal strategy. This perception alone may have weakened her standing, as courts tend to prioritize precision and evidence over volume. The situation became even more contentious when she sought an attorney's eyes-only designation for certain materials, a legal mechanism that would severely limit who could review key documents. While such requests are not unheard of, in this context it raised eyebrows and fueled speculation about what information might be withheld and why it required such a high level of confidentiality. Public perception continued to shift as rumors began circulating about an alleged $100 million effort to suppress potentially damaging evidence. Although these claims remain unverified, they gained traction quickly and added another layer of controversy to an already volatile situation. Lively defended her push for increased secrecy by pointing to her high-profile status, arguing that the release of sensitive information could cause irreparable harm to her career and public image. However, legal experts were quick to note that transparency is a cornerstone of the judicial process, particularly in high-profile civil disputes where public interest is significant. The combination of limited hard evidence, inconsistencies highlighted by previously released footage, and repeated attempts to restrict access to case materials began to create the impression of a legal strategy under strain, rather than one built on a solid evidentiary foundation. Her continued efforts to control the flow of information appeared to have the opposite effect, drawing even more attention and scrutiny. Attorney Brian Friedman reportedly criticized the approach as excessive and outside typical legal norms, suggesting that it risked undermining credibility rather than protecting it. Observers increasingly pointed to what they described as a pattern, one that seemed focused not only on influencing courtroom proceedings but also on shaping public perception through selective disclosures and strategic claims. As tensions escalated, additional concerns surfaced regarding the possibility that deeply personal information, including private medical records and details about personal relationships, could be exposed during the discovery phase, further raising the stakes for everyone involved. The controversy deepened when references were made to alleged secret witnesses who were said to support key aspects of Lively's claims but were never formally presented in court. This omission led to accusations that such references were more about generating media narratives than contributing to the legal case itself. Several media outlets reportedly declined to amplify these claims due to the absence of verifiable evidence, reinforcing doubts about their legitimacy. Meanwhile, a separate narrative emerged, attempting to portray Justin Baldoni in a negative light by labeling his behavior as toxic positivity, an argument that centered on criticizing his public persona of kindness and philanthropy. However, this line of attack was widely viewed as unconvincing and lacked the weight needed to significantly impact the broader case. Altogether, these developments have contributed to an increasingly complex and high-stakes legal battle, where shifting narratives, public scrutiny, and legal maneuvering continue to blur the line between courtroom strategy and media influence. As the scandal surrounding Blake Lively continued to deepen, speculation about behind-the-scenes maneuvering grew increasingly intense. With whispers of bribery and aggressive PR damage control circulating widely, reports suggested that she had brought in former agents and crisis specialists in an effort to contain the fallout, a move that signaled serious concern about the potential long-term impact on her reputation. Despite these efforts, new inconsistencies continued to emerge, keeping the controversy alive and difficult to manage. One of the most significant looming threats was the possibility of a formal deposition, where testimony under oath could force clear, verifiable answers and potentially expose further contradictions. Legal analysts began to speculate that, given these risks, she might ultimately pursue a settlement as a way to avoid the unpredictability and exposure that such proceedings could bring. Her situation appeared to worsen when reports surfaced that a crisis management firm had cut ties, a development that many interpreted as a sign the situation had become too volatile or damaging to effectively control. Within Hollywood circles, this kind of move often sends a powerful signal, suggesting that even professional reputation managers see limited options for recovery in the short term. At the same time, Ryan Reynolds was rumored to be working quietly behind the scenes to manage the situation and shield his family from escalating public scrutiny, adding another layer of complexity to an already multifaceted controversy. His perceived involvement only intensified media attention, as observers speculated about how deeply the issue might extend beyond the immediate legal dispute. Adding further tension, speculation began to swirl around alleged private communications involving Taylor Swift, with suggestions that certain messages could reveal coordination, influence, or pressure occurring behind closed doors. Although these claims remained unverified, they contributed to a growing narrative that the situation extended far beyond a simple legal disagreement. Meanwhile, Judge Lyman reportedly showed increasing frustration with repeated attempts to push the boundaries of standard legal procedure, reinforcing the principle that celebrity status does not entitle anyone to special treatment in court. This stance underscored the seriousness of the proceedings and signaled that the case would be evaluated strictly on legal merit rather than public image. Journalists and major media outlets also played a role in shaping the narrative, with some reportedly declining to publish certain allegations due to a lack of verifiable evidence. This hesitation further weakened Lively's position, as it suggested that even in a media environment often driven by headlines, the claims did not meet basic standards of credibility. Industry insiders began to suggest that the damage might extend beyond the courtroom, potentially affecting professional relationships that are critical in an industry where trust and collaboration are essential. In Hollywood, reputational harm can linger long after legal issues are resolved, making the stakes even higher. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni and his legal team continued to push back aggressively, presenting counter-arguments and pointing out inconsistencies in her claims. Reports of leaked audio added yet another dimension, with suggestions that certain events may have been part of a calculated effort to shape public perception, significantly shifting how the situation was being interpreted. What began as a personal and professional dispute has now evolved into a broader cautionary tale about the intersection of legal strategy, media influence, and credibility in high-profile cases. Ultimately, Blake Lively's situation highlights the risks of overreach in both legal and public arenas. As mounting allegations, shifting narratives and intense scrutiny converge, the long-term consequences could extend well beyond this case, serving as a reminder that even in Hollywood, where image is everything, reputations can change rapidly when subjected to sustained legal and public pressure.